Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Movie Crusaders. My name is Sean Wasserkrug, and with me, as always, is Brian Michaels. It's holiday time. It's like we said last week. It's getting harder and harder for us to get together to shoot these. But because of holiday time, because where we're at in the calendar, we're starting to get some bigger films. Some films that are very memorable, whether it be in box office success or for just fan favorite success. This week and next week are definitely going to be some big hitters, but they're big hitters for us. I don't think they're necessarily big hitters for everybody. Now, granted, obviously the feature today is, but there's some like, really you talk about those ones? It's like, yeah, because Brian and I are awesome. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this week's list? And even
Yeah, I mean, there have been
we'll
some
talk about next week's, but yeah,
there have been some weak weeks recently. I mean, to the point where we're like, really, we can't find anything to pick. So we get in these weeks where there is a lot to pick from. Obviously, we maybe didn't pick the most obvious ones because there were even bigger films. But it's like, yeah, it's our show. We'll talk about what we want.
yeah. This week and next week was like Sophie's Choice, trying to narrow down what to talk about. Like there was one point I think you and I way back, but I think before we really finally kind of figured out the crux of the show was like, what do we want to talk about more movies? Like just do a whole lot more, and we're like, no, we don't have the time to watch all these movies,
Especially now, yeah.
especially with right now because of right. I mean, granted, it's the same thing back then as it is now. There's like 15 movies like coming out like this week and next week alone.
Oh, yeah.
So
And that's not counting, things like Hawkeye, Book of Boba Fett starting,
Yes, or even Cobra Kai. That starts on the 31st as well. There's just so much stuff. So we kind of we kept to our 5. So if there are movies that came out during this week and next week, you're like, oh, they didn't talk about this. It's like, it probably was on our list, but we chose these to talk about instead. Either A, because they need to have a light put on them better, or we just really liked them over the others. But we are going to start out with our, I think it's a revisited.
Yes.
The revisit, yeah. This film is, I want to say, outside of like Disney animated films. This may have been my very first musical I've ever seen. It's either this or Grease. I want to say this though. This is a film that I've always been fond of, but probably haven't watched in 20 years, to be honest. It's been a long time since I've watched this movie, but I love this movie. Very fond of this film. We are talking about the 1986 musical Little Shop of Horrors. Little Shop of Horrors came out December 19th, 1986, had a budget of $25 million, had a weekend opening of $3.65 million. It was number 4 its opening weekend, and had a finished box office of $38.98 million. With this, like I said, this or Grease was definitely the first musical that I remember seeing. And even as a young kid, I mean, granted, I didn't really know what musicals were. I just knew it as it's the singing plant movie. And I actually remember as a little kid, this movie scared me. And it wasn't for what you think. It wasn't Seymour. Seymour didn't scare me. Or no,
you mean Audrey 2.
Audrey 2. Audrey 2 didn't scare me. It was the song Downtown that scared me. Because the way they shot that song, the way they shot the people in it, it looked like zombies. They looked like a zombie invasion. And that
Which is
song,
kind of the point, but yeah.
Well, yeah, totally is the point. But that song, when I was a kid, that song creeped me out and made me feel really kind of scared. Now, granted, I wasn't like a kid like, mommy. Like, I wasn't like that, but I was just like, kind of wasn't like, I don't know how to react to this. So to the point where it's like, you get Audrey 2 that eats people. I was like, all right, like, granted, this is the same kid that cried when they killed, Jaws. But yeah, I'm cool with the play eating people, but the song Downtown and the people in Downtown, that's what scared me. But yeah, this is a movie that I've never been so, granted, there's been a lot of revisiteds or even our picks that are favorites of ours that we've gone back like, oh, I'm scared to go back and rewatch this because I'm afraid it's not going to be as good. This one, I was like, I can't wait to go back and rewatch this because I know it's been so long. And this is one of those too that I knew it's been so long since I've seen it, but I was not afraid of this not hitting the same way as it did, because I knew this movie was a great film, and luckily on rewatch, it didn't change my mind. If anything, I found it, I loved it more because I understood definitely more of the adult stuff, especially between Audrey and Oren. There's certain lines that are said in that movie that I did not understand as a kid. That I definitely understand now. Yeah. But yeah, I love this film. There's a lot more for me to go on, but Brian, go ahead with your thoughts on Little Shop.
Well, this was revisited, but it very easily could have just been a feature for me because
if the feature wasn't the feature, this 100% would have been the feature for us.
Yeah, because there was no chance, none. I was going to watch this and be like, maybe I don't like it as much as I used to. No, I have loved
feature B.
Yeah, I have loved this movie since the first time I saw this. I mean, this is first of all, you got the story is lots of fun. You got great music by Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, who went on to do all the biggest Disney movies. Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion, well, not Lion, but all that kind of stuff. You have Rick Moranis, who was the unsung comedy hero of the 80s. I mean, you got Strange Brew, Ghostbusters, Spaceballs, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and then this right in the middle of all that. He's great. You have an awesome supporting cast across the board. It's directed by Frank Oz. It's just a ton of fun. It's something that really the whole family can watch, unless you're Sean and you're scared of people who live on Skid Row because you're classist. I mean, the effects in this. Now, there are two things about this movie. This movie got 2 Oscar nominations. It should have got a lot more, in my opinion.
It should have got a lot more.
Got nominated for special effects, which it absolutely deserved. That puppet for Audrey 2, especially back in the 80s, is amazing. The amount of articulation and stuff they put in there.
Especially in the final act when he starts singing, oh God, was it Mean Green?
Mean Green Mother, yeah.
Oh God, that is the best damn song.
Yeah, I mean, just the way the lips move and everything, it's like you believe this thing's like you would if I watched this today for the first time, I would think it was computer generated.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
But it's 100% practical puppet on set, and it is gorgeous. It lost the Oscar though to Aliens, which I get it. But then it also was nominated for Best Song for Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. Lost that to Take My Breath Away from Top Gun. So whatever.
That was a snub.
Yeah, well, that's kind of back in the day when that's one of the Oscars they often threw to like popular movies.
I'm sorry, if you're gonna give Top Gun a fucking Oscar, it's Danger Zone, not Take Your Breath Away. Like if you said it lost to Danger Zone, I'm like, okay, but Take My Breath. No, F you. Mean Green Mother. 100%.
This movie, I don't think I didn't catch all the numbers you were rattling off there. I don't think it did very well.
No, it didn't. It didn't do well. It barely. And I'm assuming budget or like press and merch and promotion stuff wasn't nearly as much as it is today.
No,
so I mean, it made about 14 million more than what it made, which I don't know if that really meant they made money on this, but back in 87 or 86, they maybe made some back.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't considered like one of the all-time flops or anything. So it wasn't an expensive movie to make, but
no.
But it's a movie that was not big at the time, and over the years, it's like one of those movies where I have never talked to a single person who saw this movie and didn't enjoy it. Maybe not as much as me, but I've never talked to anyone who's watched this and didn't enjoy it.
This is to me is the film that should have been oh my God, I totally lost my brain just went dead. Rocky Horror. The love that Rocky Horror gets should go to this. There should be midnight showings of Little Shop of Horror. There should be people dressed as Audrey 2 or Audrey and Seymour. Like this deserves that. Because you and I both were like, Rocky Horror's not really that good.
Rocky Horror, I don't hate, but I don't hate it,
but it's overrated.
And I understand people that like go to these things and they dress up, and it's become more about that than about the film itself.
It's like Comic-Con.
But it's like I really wish this movie got the kind of attention because this movie deserves it, and it has grown the following, more and more over the years. Like I said, everyone I talk to who's seen it loves it, but it's just a movie that I wish had more attention to it.
Well, it's getting remade now, so we'll see.
Well,
have you heard the cast for this?
Well, I heard.
I looked up the cast, the current cast.
Last I heard, tell me if I'm wrong, was Josh Gad.
No.
Oh.
No.
Is it Jake Gyllenhaal again?
No.
Who is it?
The current cast is Seymour is Taron Egerton.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one.
Audrey is Scarlett Johansson. and Oren is Chris Evans, and Billy Porter is Audrey 2.
I had heard Billy and Chris were last I heard, but I hadn't heard that they had, because they've gone through. This is one of those things they've been talking about remaking for a long
They've
time
been wanting
now.
to remake this forever.
And at times it was Josh Gad, at times it was Jake Gyllenhaal, mostly because he played him on a short run in Broadway when they revived it. And
I think Taron Egerton, because we've seen how he looks like Eddie the Eagle and stuff like that, I think Taron Egerton probably can look the Seymour part a lot better. And I think who do they have for Audrey besides Scarlett?
I don't remember who they had.
I think Scarlett, if they kind of give her the bob thing, she can totally pull off Audrey. Chris Evans is the one.
Well, the Audrey part, I'm more concerned with Audrey with the voice, because that is a powerful role. And Ellen Green, she's the one who originated that film. She originated that role on Broadway before she played it in this movie.
But she sings in Sing, and she actually does a really good job. It's more of a rocker, raspy voice, but she can do it. I don't know if she's gonna be able to hit the Audrey notes.
Yeah, so the biggest problem for me is Billy Porter. I'm like,
and I don't hate Billy Porter. He doesn't have his voice is totally different for Audrey.
He did. I mean, I'm not aware that he's a singer. I'm aware he's like more of an actor or a personality more than anything else. First of all, I don't really like his personality, but it's just not my taste. But then at the same time, you're going up against a performance. It was Levi Stubbs, who's one of the guys from the Four Tops, was doing this, and he did an amazing job.
Amazing, like hands down, probably one of my favorite puppet.
Like without his voice in that role, I'm not sure this movie is what it is.
Exactly, and I think that's the make or break when it comes to the remake. Because if you don't sell Audrey 2 the way it needs to be sold, then it doesn't matter how well the human cast is.
And you know it'll be CGI.
What's that?
And you know it'll be CGI now too.
Yeah, they need to keep it practical. The practical.
I mean, I'm sure I'll see it if it ever actually gets made.
I'll 100% see it.
But I'm not optimistic for that.
Like I'm actually pretty cool with the acting part for Chris Evans for Oren. It's the singing, and I don't think I've ever really heard Chris Evans sing. But
I've never heard him sing seriously. I've heard him sing like in Not Another Teen Movie or something, but not like seriously sing.
Yeah, but I want to. The reason why I led to that is I want to talk about the amazingly awesome performance of Steve Martin in this. It's such a small part. It is such. Here's the thing: when I was a kid, I remember him being in the movie a lot more than he was, and that's because of how amazing Steve Martin is in this small role. I felt he was in the film the whole way through, and then you realize he's only in there for like 5, maybe 10 minutes of screen time, if that.
Yeah, I mean it's more than like Bill Murray cameo, but it's still not a major role.
I was gonna touch on that one. Don't you take my thunder from that. But first things first, Steve Martin looks like Nathan Fillion with that hair. No, come on.
You mentioned that too. I mean, I can see Nathan Fillion playing this role, but I did not see him looking like Nathan Fillion.
When he's singing the dentist song, I don't remember what the actual song is called. I Want to Be a Dentist, I think. And he's strutting down the halls. That's Nathan Fillion as Captain Hammer to the max.
Like I said, I can see him playing this role. I didn't think he looked like Nathan Fillion though.
Watch it again and watch him kind of do his like that. No, that's totally Nathan Fillion.
Well, and that's another thing is Steve Martin's performance in this movie. It's really over the top, and it really can't be. And
intended to be though.
If the rest of the movie wasn't in that same tone, it could be a really bad performance, but it fits in this movie.
It fits perfectly. Like, and we've said this before, where there are over the top performances that are very bad, very very bad, because the rest of the film is not matching that level. And then there are those where they're so over the top that it's like I am loving that he's having like I said this last year with Birds of Prey, Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. He was cheesing it up, but it fit with the Birds of Prey film, and he was having a lot of fun. Steve Martin's having a blast in this film, and especially when Bill Murray comes in. I totally forgot about the Bill Murray cameo. Totally forgot. So when he popped in, and that character is that character, those two, I was dying through that.
That's the role that Jack Nicholson played in the original film.
Yes, I heard about that. I was like, I kind of want to check.
It wasn't the same movie then. It was more of a straightforward kind of cheesy.
Yeah, it was more kind of serious kind of thing. But yes, the Bill Murray scene, like it was one of those things. Like as I was like, Bill Murray's in this, and then he starts going through. I'm like, why do I not remember this? But then I remember him when Steve Martin's had enough. He's like, get out of here, and he spits out the what do you call them? The gauze.
The cotton thing, yeah.
Yeah, he goes, what? That part was like. Oh, I remember that. I remember him spitting out all the gauze. I loved the Bill Murray cameo. Another person that kind of kept throwing me for a loop, and I want to know if you agree with me on this. Vincent Gardena, who plays the boss of the shop, was it Mushnick?
Mr. Mushnick, yeah.
Mr. Mushnick. First time I saw him, I was like, John Goodman's in this? Because he looks like John Goodman. It's scary how close they look alike. But first 5 minutes, I was like,
someone like John Goodman. Now he looks in that movie like John Goodman closer to now. Of course, this John Goodman back then didn't quite look like that.
Exactly,
but I could see the similarities when you mentioned that. Yeah.
Exactly. But I was just like, no. I was like, because I was like, he was like,
if they made it today, I could totally see them putting him in it.
Yeah, exactly. They cast John Goodman now. Picture perfect casting. But yeah, I like Rick Moranis is Rick Moranis, but I didn't know Rick Moranis could sing.
Oh yeah,
this came out. Now, granted, we knew. Was it Ellen Green? We knew Ellen Green could sing because she
originated the role on Broadway.
No, isn't she in Grease? Isn't she the one with pink hair in Grease?
She's not.
I thought she was the girl from Grease.
No, that's a whole different girl.
Oh wow! I just thought they were the same person. I was like, oh yeah, the girl from Grease.
You're talking about Frenchie. I don't remember the actor's name, but it's not her.
Oh, I totally thought that was the same person. But yeah, I also was funny to me is I forgot that was Christopher Guest, John Candy. I forgot that I knew 2 out of the 3. What do you call the girl singers that throughout the film?
Oh, I forget what they call them.
I don't know what they're called. Like, I know the character names, like Chiffon, Ronette, and Crystal, but I don't remember what they're called. But I totally forgot that it was Tisha Campbell and Tashina Arnold, who I watched The Neighborhood on CBS, and of course Martin. They're both in Martin. So Martin. But wow, that's the second Martin callback being done on the show because of Dogma. But I forgot that so when they popped up, I was like, is that? Oh my god, yes. But yeah, no, Little Shop of Horrors, like I said, it lives and dies on Audrey 2. Now, I've never seen the original ending or the director's cut ending. I don't know how that would work. I thought
because it originally came out on DVD and they had the director's cut, original ending on there, but actually before it got released, like the week before it was supposed to come out, they recalled it because there was lawsuits over who had the rights to it and stuff. But of course, I had already gotten a hold of a copy by then.
I've seen pictures,
and since then, it's been released as extras on some DVDs and things like that. And it's one of those things where it tries to be more of a, I don't want to say shocking, but instead of the happy ending, it was basically they're taking over the world kind of thing. And
yeah, basically Audrey 2 wins.
I mean, that'd be interesting, but honestly, I prefer the theatrical ending.
Oh yeah, especially with the little touch at the end that Audrey 2's not really gone, kind of thing. But yeah, I love this film. I want to say enough people. I think everyone at least knows of Little Shop of Horrors. I don't think they like it nearly as much as you and I do, but I think everyone probably needs to revisit it. It's probably been a while, like it was for me. I think everyone needs to go back and check out Little Shop of Horrors. Is it on anything?
Little Shop of Horrors is on HBO Max.
It is on HBO Max. So yeah, there's no excuse for anyone who has HBO Max to not check out Little Shop of Horrors, especially if the remake supposedly is coming, like they said it is. Definitely check this out. It is a great musical. Now, there's some songs I wasn't super crazy about, but Mean Green Mother is that whole scene is amazing from beginning to end. That literally makes and breaks the movie, and amongst everything other things. I mean, the Seymour song, and that's one of the things when I thought back to the movie, the first thing that popped in my head wasn't Audrey 2. It was her song about her thinking of how her and Seymour were going to end up. I forgot the name of the song, but
it's a place that's green or something like that.
Yeah, a place where somewhere is green or something. But that's the first memory that popped in my head of this movie was her thinking about their future together and not Audrey 2, which is shocking. But yes, Little Shop of Horrors. Check it out. If you haven't seen it in a while, go back and revisit it. If you've never seen it, go watch it right now because it's ridiculous that you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, don't even watch our show. Go watch that now.
Yeah, you can come back to us. Go watch Little Shop. We're moving on now to Brian's pick. This is a film that I remember when I saw the trailers for it. I was super excited because outside of one film that wasn't that great, we rarely get to see this actor as a villain. And so I was really excited to see it. Now, first time watching it, did not like it. Was not a fan. So going back to it, this is probably the one movie I had the hardest time going back and rewatching, Brian, because I was like, I don't want to watch this film. But we're gonna talk about it. Brian's pick is Lemony Snicket's. Is it Snicket's?
Snicket's.
A series of unfortunate events. Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events came out December 17th, 2004, had a budget of $140 million, had a weekend opening of $30.06 million. It was number one its opening weekend, its only week at the number one spot. It had a finished box office of $211.46 million, $118.63 million domestic, and $92.83 million international. This is your film, so take it away.
So I had this came out in 2004. This is I don't even know where to start with this. If you've ever read the books, A Series of Unfortunate Events, which I don't know if any of you are, right?
I haven't
read those. And now I had not when the movie came out, but since then I have read a lot of them because I have two kids that were born, and I really liked these books because they aren't childish books, but they aren't books that are too adult for kids either. It's like books that don't talk down to kids. They have a darkness to them. I mean, the beginning of this movie, I love the way this movie starts out. It starts out with a happy little elf, movie. And then he's like, this is not that movie. If you want to see that, you should go to the theater next door because this movie is, going to be depressing and blah, blah, blah. And that's what the book's like too.
Would have been great marketing for this is that every theater next door was like Elf or something. That would have been perfect marketing. So if they did leave, it'd be
hard to pull off, but yeah. But anybody who read the books knew that was kind of what it was like. These are books that they definitely kind of played with that darkness. It was the narrator was constantly talking to the audience. He was he a lot of times would talk about certain words. He goes, a word which here means this, and it's just they got the tone of the books perfect for this movie. The main thing about this movie, the big appeal, the big marketing push was Jim Carrey, of course, as Count Olaf, who honestly was perfect casting. Jim Carrey, I think at this point was starting to hit a lull in his career. I think that he kind of spent the 90s doing goofy Jim Carrey kind of thing. And then he started trying to dabble in some more serious roles, or some of his comedies just weren't hitting the way they were. And so he took on this one. And this is actually one of my favorite roles of his entire career, honestly, because he gets to do kind of his goofy characters in that, but instead of just being random goofy characters, it actually serves a purpose. He gets to play all these different characters within a movie because that's what this actor in the movie is doing. He gets to play a villain, which, like Sean mentioned, he doesn't get to do very often.
Outside of Batman Forever, and I mean, he's done more villain roles since then. But at the time, you basically had him as the Riddler,
right?
That was it.
But I mean, it's definitely a role that fit Jim Carrey well. Now, of course, they did the TV series where Neil Patrick Harris played him, and I think Neil Patrick Harris was good in the role, but I honestly prefer Jim Carrey in that. And that's the other thing about this movie is that I think one of the things that does hurt this movie is the fact that it is incomplete. This movie, they were going to make movies that covered 3 books at a time. And so this one, they made one movie, made $211 million, but yet apparently that wasn't enough for a sequel. So it never got to complete its story. So it feels like just a part of a story. The ending doesn't feel complete. There's not really a satisfying ending to it. There's a kind of an ending, but not really a satisfying ending to the whole story. And so I think that kind of hurt it. As far as the kids, I think the kids were wonderful actors. I think they had a great cast they had a lot of famous actors in just small supporting roles, whether it be Meryl Streep, Billy Connolly, Dustin Hoffman is in there.
Hoffman's got like 2 lines in the movie.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying is they have a lot of people that just have even tiny roles in there. But I really like seeing them. Luis Guzman, I always like having that. Jude Law is the narrator. I think he was perfect for the narrator role of Lemony Snicket. So this is just a movie that, for me, somebody who doesn't like cutesy kids movies so much, this is the kind of kids movie I really enjoy because it's got humor to it, but it's not, the obvious humor that you see in most kids movies. It's not all slapstick. It's not Beverly Hills Chihuahua. It's fun, but it's kind of dark, and it's kind of thing that maybe adults will enjoy, things on a maybe a different level than kids. And so it's just something different. And that's why this one appealed to me. What were your thoughts on it?
okay, let me get this out of the way before I go into it. I agree. Jim Carrey is amazing in this performance. This is right up Carrey's alley. Everything he does in this is pitch perfect. Jim Carrey. Should he have gotten a nomination for this? I mean, I can't remember the movies came out in 2004, but this was a nominated role. He shouldn't have won, but he deserved to have been acknowledged for the role he did in this. Emily, I think it's Emily Browning, who plays
It won Oscar. It won Oscar for makeup, by the way.
Yeah, one for makeup. But Emily Browning as Violet, I thought did a great job. Liam Aiken as Klaus did a great job. I'm sorry, I am not a Meryl Streep fan. I find her ungodly annoying. So
I'm not a huge fan of hers, and she wasn't like the draw of the movie for me. But
I'm talking about her as an actress in general. I've never been a fan of hers, and her character being super over the top annoying just was like, well, this is how I always see Meryl Streep. So it just, But I agree, Jude Law, pitch perfect with his narration. I mean, Catherine O'Hara, Billy Connolly. I mean, the list goes on and on of all these great actors. I think all of them do a great job. I think the movie looks dour and dreary, but it's supposed to. I get that. Here's my part with this, and you know this is a big faux pas for me that I can't stand. I know you're gonna say, "Ooh, it's like that in the books." I don't care. I hate movies where, and we've talked about this on other films on the show, where literally everyone outside of the main cast, and I get in this case Olaf as well, are fucking dumbasses and are just obliviously dumb for the sake of being obliviously dumb for the plot. Now I get it; it's part of the book.
It wasn't the book.
I get that. But it's frustrating and it's annoying to no end watching this and watching Timothy Spall just bubble through this whole stupid thing about not understanding the things going on, and Catherine O'Hara being dumb enough to basically do the whole wedding thing was fucking ridiculous.
And creepy.
It's exactly, it's creepy and all this shit. It's stupid, and how everyone just doesn't like, even Bill Connolly and Meryl Streep are like, he's not how dare you just do that. It's just I hate this movie. I hate it. I can appreciate the good in it. Like, I still gave it 3 stars because of the performances and visually how it looks. I hate this film. I hate watching this movie. I tried watching the Netflix because Netflix, Neil Patrick Harris, outside of the kids, like the cast for it was like, I like that cast. I watched the first season, which I think is basically for the most part, the first half of the movie.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Because they do I think it was.
They did all the books over I think 3 seasons. So yeah.
Yeah, they went 3 seasons with it. I watched the whole first season, didn't enjoy a single fucking moment of it. So going back to this, I was like, I don't want to watch this. Halfway through, I'm like, I fucking hate this. But I was watching, I was like, but Jim Carrey's fucking killing it. Jim Carrey's doing a great job. This person's doing a great job. It's like, you know what? Like, under normal circumstances, I would be talking the hell out of this movie because of how well the performances are. But I hate the way the movie goes about its stuff. I hate how, granted, it's a kid's book. So the way it jumps around and kind of just moves super quickly through things, that's because it's a kid's book and trying to keep their attention span and all that.
It was also trying to cram 3 books into one movie.
Exactly. But I hated the structure of how they did it. Visually and acting, top notch. I thought it was great. The structure, the way it was done, the way the performances were, you can make Count Olaf be the super intelligent mastermind that can get over on these adults without making everyone in the world outside of the kids look like they have an IQ of 12. And that's the shit that pisses me off. There's good writing. There's good writing of having a guy who's a mastermind who can make everyone who's actually clever look stupid and get over on people. And then he's not even that clever, but everyone's a fucking idiot. So he just has to put on a suit and everyone or puts on makeup and everyone just doesn't understand. And that's the shit that frustrates me. And there's other movies we've talked about where it's just like, I can't get behind this film because I can't believe people are that stupid. Now, granted, there are some really stupid people in the world, but I hate this movie. I hate it so much. It's not my kind of film. It's not. I can appreciate it for what it was, which is why I gave it 3 stars, because I can appreciate the good in it. But this is not a movie that I would ever recommend to someone. It's not a movie I would ever want to watch again. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I was just frustrated and annoyed the whole time. And there's good frustration, which we're gonna get to with another film. There's good frustration where it frustrates you how people act and how people do certain things. You're like, why are you doing? It's like, okay, but that's good. This one's like, this is just idiotic. Like, this is just, especially the Meryl Streep part. Like Billy Connolly's part, I love the Billy Connolly part of the film. That's probably my favorite part of the film, was the Billy Connolly part. The Meryl Streep part, the whole Meryl Streep part, hated. And then of course the marriage thing was just as dumb. To me, the movie stopped being decent after Billy Connolly's scenes. Everything after that, I just despise all the way through, especially to the end. But yeah, this is not my kind of film. Is there anything else you want to add? You want to add some icing over this, since I just basically shit all over it?
No, I mean, except to say that I will say I think the movie is far better than the Netflix series, although the Netflix series at least got to finish the story. So if you've only seen the Netflix thing, I would say watch this movie. I think it's good. It did get Oscar nominations for all the right things. It got nominated for art direction, for makeup, for score, for costume, all that kind of stuff. Because like you said, it looks amazing. It's very well made. If you don't like the characters, nothing I can do about that. I feel differently, but
the characters is the writing of the characters.
Yeah. It is on Hulu and Paramount Plus right now.
All right. Well, we are moving on to our stinker film. Now, the stinker has been a journey. This was a journey for us because we were originally going to be talking about Bill Cosby's Letterboxd. Yeah, so we were like, first off, hot button issue because it's Bill Cosby, but it's like, the movie's so bad. Like, we have to talk about it. Till we tried to start watching it. No one has it. Like, you could pay to rent it. But Brian and I have kind of...
Maybe in February would have done that, but we're like, at this point...
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, if it was earlier in the year, $2-3 to rent a stinker, no problem. Brian and I would have done it in a heartbeat. We have watched a lot of stinker films this year, and we're embarrassed.
And we're done paying for it.
For a good chunk of these movies. And it got to the point where it's like, you know what, it's the end of the year. I don't want to spend 10 cents on this damn film. And you were like, I don't want to either. So there was no other way. There was no way to stream it. And we didn't want to rent it. So I was like, all right, let's look at the list. What else do we got? I think we came up with like 3 or 4 movies. I think we had Alvin and the Chipmunks, Road Trip. We had Yogi Bear. We had oh god, there was another one. I
don't remember the other one.
What was it? King Kong Lives. We had was it the Trail or the Trial of the Pink Panther? Something like that.
It was Trail of, I think.
Trail of Him. And we're looking through all those and was like, I don't really want to watch any of them because like you and I were over the kids movies. You know, we've done the kids movie stinkers and stuff like that. So we didn't want to watch Alvin or Yogi. Plus, honestly, the cast for Yogi actually looked really good. So we were like, I don't want to end up liking this again, kind of thing. And then I pointed out this film. Now, granted, Brian and I, we had this. I love how we're wasting so much time explaining what we didn't pick instead of talking about it. We had this rule going into this year is that we would not talk about any films that came out last year because it's too recent, it's too prevalent, and probably because I would have done a review for it on the show. This film did come out last year, but I did not see it. So
and at this point, we're a full year out from it. So
exactly, and at this point, we're 1 year since its release. So we were like, you know what? Screw it. It's the end of the year. Let's just pick it. Let's break our
rules out the window at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just pick it because let's see how bad this really is. So we are talking about Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter came out December 18th, 2020. Had a budget of $60 million. Had a weekend opening of $2.2 million. It was number 1. Its opening weekend. It's only weekend number 1. Our finished box office was $42.14 million, $15.16 million domestic, and $26.98 million international. Now, granted, this is COVID numbers. 2.2 million was number one its opening weekend. I don't know.
And this is early COVID numbers.
Yeah,
This is like,
under normal non-COVID circumstances, that would have been like number 10 on the weekend. And plus, this movie would have made a lot more money. Let's be real.
and it would have made a ton more in like Japan and China too.
It would. The numbers look atrocious, but this is like right in the COVID of it all. And so it's hard to judge it based off of its box office. That is not what we're going to attack because it's unfair to attack. That's another reason why we kind of didn't want to talk about 2020 movies, because the box offices look atrocious on everything. We wanted to talk about it because of what the film was itself. Now, Monster Hunter is based off a video game. I had a guy I used to work with. He loved that game. Like, I think the first month after that game came out, he played that thing like religiously. He would keep coming to me with, yeah, I did this and this. I'm like, never played it. Cool. I don't understand what you're talking about, but awesome. The reason why I didn't want to see it wasn't because it was based off of a video game, because granted, I like video game movies. They're not all good, but I'm intrigued to them. It was because of the director and the lead. Now, I don't hate Mila Jovovich. I don't. But with her and Paul W.S. Anderson are together, we get Resident Evil. And the Resident Evil franchise is dog shit. I've hated it since the first film. Part 2, Apocalypse, I didn't hate. That was the first one that actually made me feel like I was watching a Resident Evil movie. Which is why I was so excited for Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, because it looked like a Resident Evil movie, but Brian said the movie sucked. But I don't like those movies. So when I saw the trailers from Monster Hunter, I was like, so this is basically just Resident Evil again. And that's why I didn't watch. Plus, I heard it was horrible, and I didn't watch it. So we ended up going into watching this again. I've talked long enough. So, Brian, why don't you kick us off with Monster Hunter?
Yeah. So, okay, first of all, Paul W.S. Anderson. I maintain he's the most watchable of the Andersons. Paul Thomas Anderson is a pretentious bastard who,
he does good movies.
Huh?
He does some good movies.
Yeah, I mean, but he makes that kind of like Oscar bait kind of movies, and some of them are
100%.
good. There are some that I like, but there's plenty that are just, I don't think they deserve any of the acclaim they get. Then there's Wes Anderson, who just quirky for quirk's sake. Again, he's made a couple films I enjoy, mostly just not my, and both of them, I will say, not bad directors, just not my kind of thing. Paul W.S. Anderson, I'm not going to say he's my kind of thing either, because he made plenty of bad movies. The Resident Evil movies are not good. Most of his other movies are not great, but some of them are at least fun for me to watch. Mila Jovovich, like Sean, I have no problem with it. She's made some good movies here and there. We've talked about a few of them here on the show.
Exactly. Fifth Element, for example.
But this one, I knew nothing about the video game going into it either. I didn't even know it was a video game until people started talking about it. But, I saw it because I could, because, it's nothing else was playing at the theaters. But this one came out, so I'm like, oh, fine, I'll check it out. It's not as horrible as I expected. And honestly, my score went up a half star on this rewatch. Because while it's not a good movie, there are things about it that have potential. I think that some of the look of the movie, some of the things they do with it look really cool. I think the monsters are very well designed. Actually, the special effects with them are excellent. I think they're very well done. I love that they kept in with the whole video game thing, they kept like the giant, cartoonishly large anime swords and weapons and things like that. I think that works really well for this movie. The problems are, first and foremost, the editing in this movie will.
I honestly forgot about the editing.
You're going to have seizures watching this movie. I mean, in like, you pick one individual scene, pick any scene in this movie and watch it, and there'll be like 50 cuts just in like a 1 minute.
You knew it was bad when I picked up on it, because I don't normally pick up on it, and even I went, oh my god.
It's like, if you've ever seen anybody discuss or use as an example that scene in Taken 3 when Liam Neeson's just jumping over a fence, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it takes like 21 cuts.
There's like 21 cuts just for Liam Neeson to go and jump over a fence. It's like just so.
Or even the more iconic one now is Bohemian Rhapsody, because it won the Oscar for best editing. But the scene where they're talking at the table, and it's just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
It's like,
So
stop.
take that scene and pretty much do the entire movie that way, and there you have the editing problem. The other problem is pacing. I mean, the movie, first of all, it starts out in this desert fight. It takes a good while before they kind of get to this other world, and then from there it takes a long time. We actually forgot that like Ron Perlman, some people were like, wait, is he coming back in this movie?
He looks like a monkey, by the way.
Who looks like a monkey, by the way. Ron Perlman always kind of looks like a monkey, but especially when they give him like, I'm sure it must have been accurate to the Japanese video game.
I don't know if these were characters from the game though.
I'm probably sure that, if not, they certainly made them look like they were supposed to be. The other thing is the music in this movie. I swear it has to be game accurate music because it sounds like music from a Japanese video game. It starts playing like randomly throughout the movie. And you're like, am I playing a game right now? I don't know what's going on.
There was one prominent one where I went like, what the hell? And you point, I'm like, that's exactly why my face was like this because the music just was so out of place of what was actually happening on screen.
I did like seeing Tony Jaa in this, even though his character doesn't always make sense and some of the things he does don't always make sense. It's still always cool to see Tony Jaa being a badass. So there's that going for it. There were nitpicky things. I don't know if you want to talk about the Hershey bar.
I figured you would bring up the Hershey bar. So
okay. Just little things like this, little things that show they weren't paying attention in this movie. It's just like, at one point, she breaks out a Hershey bar and shares it with him, and he's like, ooh, chocolate. And of course, now he thinks all food is called chocolate. But the thing is, even if you took out the whole fact that she went through this wormhole to this other dimension and was fighting monsters in this desert area before she broke out a Hershey bar and handed it to him, she was already out on some kind of recon mission in the desert with her whole team.
Let's break down the movies. First things first, she's in the desert with her unit, her military unit.
Mm-hmm.
So already in the desert.
Full fatigues, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Then their car gets like kind of flipped in the lightning storm. So she's getting jungled all around. They're back in another desert and another side of the world. They're running around, getting thrown around, fighting. She gets stabbed by a spider kind of creature thing. Gets put into an icky cocoon, lands in water, crawls out of that, fights, rolls around, gets thrown around, back in the desert, gets captured by Jaa, they fight, they do all this kind of stuff. 20 minutes later, she pulls out this candy bar, and it is pristine.
It's like, I'm sorry, a Hershey bar will not last for 5 minutes in my coat pocket in 60-degree weather without turning to liquid practically.
Yeah, that she would have looked like she shit her pants.
I know this is so nitpicky, but I'm just
it's not even nitpicky. It's just like what?
But just the fact that she pulled this out, both Sean and I would thought of that. That's how not engrossing the rest of the movie is.
It's a chocolate bar. It wouldn't matter if it was Starburst or Skittles or even M&Ms. That candy would not have been candy anymore. It would have been mushed liquid. Yeah. It wouldn't be solid anymore. And he's just chopping away. I'm like, she's been outside in the desert for at least a day, if not more. Plus, she landed in water. She was also in a spider cocoon. There is no way that is food.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we were so not, into the movie so much that we were like noticing little things like that. That's where our minds were going.
Yeah, here's the problem with the film, and I agree. In hindsight, this is not a sneaker film. It's really not. I think you throw these two together, Paul W.S. Anderson and Mila Jovovich, after all the Resident Evils, and they made another movie that's a lot like that kind of film, and you put it in the COVID area, and it didn't do well. And I think that's all kind of pocketed, made this be one of the sneaker films of the year. I don't think it's necessarily that. It's okay. It's not good, but it's not like the worst. Here's the problem with the film, and like you said, pacing. Had this movie been the last 40 minutes of the movie, it actually has potential to be a really good film. Which is when they find this almost like a jungle kind of thing, and then it starts to become about them trying to hunt down this I forgot the names of the creatures, but this dragon, which looks amazing, by the way. The dragon looks fantastic. This whole story that they're doing in the last 40 minutes was entertaining. And you and I were relative. Now I wouldn't say we were invested. We were kind of like, all right, cool. Let's see what this is. The problem is that the first hour 10 is this desert situation where it's called Monster Hunter. This is a game with hundreds of monsters and all these different kinds of creatures, stuff like that. You waste the first hour 10 minutes of this film on two creatures. This big Diablos kind of horned creature.
Which you waste on Tremors and Starship Troopers.
Exactly. It's basically Tremors and Starship Troopers and you wasted the whole film on this. And by the time you get to this like jungle area, you got dinosaurs, which I'm like, all right, cool. And then you got this big ass dragon, which I'm like, well, shit, where was this for the first 2/3 of the movie? And then in the last half of the last third of the film, like it's good, like it's entertaining, but you have all these secondary characters that you're not even given a like 2 seconds of screen time to give a shit about outside of Ron Perlman. Even then, Ron Perlman's got maybe like 4 lines of dialogue, and he's in it for maybe 10 minutes. You got this weird cat character that just randomly shows up. Like, I was like, wait, is that a cat?
If you didn't know you were watching something based on a Japanese video game, you did then.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, like if you're gonna do something with this cat, then I'm all for it. No, they don't do anything with the cat.
It just happens to be this talking cat on the
Yeah,
scene.
Eventually, he eventually joins the fight. It's like, well, cool, let's watch the cat fight. No, you don't get to. And then let's not talk about how idiotic Mila Jovovich's character is. She's in a desert. She's in she realizes she is not in her normal world anymore. She's being chased by this big ass horn creature and these spider creatures, and her whole platoon is dead. This dude saves her, and what is the first thing she does when she meets this guy? She fucking attacks him, and they're fighting. I was like, do you not understand what's going on right now?
He has spent this time trying to help other team protecting her, and then when he has the opportunity, he's attacking her too. It's like
exactly. It's like it makes no sense. It's like you're in a world with these creatures and stuff like that, and you found a human, let alone who saved your life. And the first thing you're gonna do is attack said human and try to kill said human. The mindset of these characters is fucking idiotic. But the most egregious part of this film is you have this final battle with Mila Jovovich and...
No, you don't.
What's that?
I said, no, you don't. But go ahead.
No, you don't what?
I have a final battle.
Well, yeah. But you have this final battle with Mila Jovovich and this dragon. Looks really good. Like, it's actually entertaining. The dragon's taking out army men because the dragon jumps through to the portal through the real world. He's taking out all these army people, stuff like that. And you have Mila Jovovich, who's now badass, who knows how to wield these almost like Kratos blades from Gods of War. But they have this fight. She kills the dragon, and they come Ja and Perlman, they jump through the portal, and they look through and they see that there's another dragon. So they jump back into the portal to the other world, and they basically charge it. And the movie ends. And I'm like, never did I think I was going to get a remake of the series finale of Angel until I saw this film. That is one of the most pissed off series finales that I have ever seen. If anyone's ever watched Joss Whedon's Angel, where it's literally the final episode, and they're in an alley, and all the Angel and the rest of his crew, they're all banged up, like they're about ready to die. And they look down the alley, and there's all these creatures and vampires, and there's a fucking dragon. And Angel goes, try to stay alive. I call dibs on the dragon. And then runs, and then it fades to black, and that's the end of the show. You're like, no! I want to see Angel fight the dragon! This is the same thing. You have all of them rushing to attack this dragon. And the movie just ends.
Yeah, it's like, well, first of all, with Mila Jovovich and this dragon, it's like, I thought that whole battle was so anticlimactic. It's like they built up this dragon, and then all of a sudden it's just like, boom, here's my knife, he's dead. Like, that was it. That's all it took out. To take out the boss character, that's all it took was, a well-thrown.
Wasn't he? No, it was Tony Jaa shooting the arrow, I thought.
Or whatever it was. But yeah. He died very easily and very quickly. You're like, okay, that's it.
They're being nearly unkillable. It seemed like it was harder to kill the Diablos.
Yeah. So then they go to the, like Sean was talking, this secondary ending or whatever, where they all basically charge, and then it cuts to black. They did everything basically except put "to be continued" on the screen, which I'm sure was their hope that this will become a new franchise like Resident Evil.
Even if this thing got a sequel, the movie's not going to start with them fighting the dragon.
Clearly, it's not going to. But yeah, I mean, I haven't watched Angel, but I can see it like that. I also thought of The Gray with Liam Neeson, which everybody knows as the wolf punching movie. But the scene they're waiting for, they want to see him fight the wolf. But the end is like him charging the wolf and then cut to black. And it's like, what?
But yeah, I mean, this movie, in a nutshell, is just weirdly paced. It chooses to waste too much time in one area, and basically holds off the.
Because that was the lowest budget area, probably.
Yeah, the lowest budget area, and it holds off the cool stuff for the last 40 minutes, which is where, to me, what felt mostly like the game. So you didn't really give us the game. You gave us a kind of a bland monster movie, and that's where it kind of falters. It's not like it's a bad movie. It's just like where was your mindset in writing the script and doing this film? Because apparently you maybe it was budgetary things, I don't know, but at this day and age, I find it very hard to blame the budget with the way these movies get so much money. But it's a poorly put together film. Like I was, everything looks good. It looks good. But just the coming together of it, the mindset, the way the script is, everything all about it is just so poorly done. It's like this could have been something really good, but it just is another failed Paul W.S. Mila Djokovic, crap film. I mean, that's the bottom line of it. Like we didn't hate it, but it was just like one of those was like, man, this movie could have been way better, way better. And what's the takeaway is Ron Perlman looks like a monkey. There was a cat character, and it was basically Tremors and Starship Troopers, but not nearly as good as either one of those. And then and then Rain of Fire, the dragon, basically, which also way better of a film. Monster Hunter is not on anything right now.
Not unless you have stars, no.
Yeah, you have stars. But yeah, so like I said, that long journey for the stinker this week didn't really become a stinker, but yeah, let's put it this way: Leonard Part 6, horrible film. Obviously, that would have been such an easy film to talk about, even with the subject material. But we are now moving on to my pick. This film is an Oscar film. Won awards, was nominated for Best Picture. I really enjoy it. I know Brian is not the biggest fan of it, but I made him rewatch it because he made me watch Lemony Snicket's again. So we are talking about the 2010 sports drama, The Fighter. The Fighter came out December 17th, 2010, had a budget of $25 million, had a weekend opening of $12.13 million. It also made 310,000 in limited releases and was number 4 its opening weekend. It had a finished box office of $129.19 million, $93.61 million domestic, and $35.57 million international. This movie, for the most part, is remembered for one thing, and that is the Oscar-winning performance of Christian Bale, who I think puts on an amazing transformation as Dickie. He lost a ton of weight for the role, which we know Christian Bale, he does that. His performance in this film is heartbreaking, frustrating, and he knocks it out of the park. Also, Melissa Leo, she also won the Oscar for supporting actress for playing their mom, Alice. Like I said, Mark Wahlberg's there. I'll touch more on Mark Wahlberg, but I really I don't want to say enjoy because it's a drama. You don't really like enjoy dramas, but in terms of what the film is, and it's true story. It's based off Mickey blanking on his last name, Mickey Ward, which anyone who's a boxing fan, y'all know who Mickey Ward is, and his brother Dickie. The way this film is done, and it's and like I said with Let Me Take It, there's good frustration of characters and there's bad frustration. Let Me Take It was bad frustration. This was good frustration. You have Melissa Leo's character of Alice, who is just like scratch on a chalkboard, annoyingly compliant, and kind of just lets Dickie get away with everything, constantly upping Dickie and popping Dickie up, and Mickey is the one that's like supposed to be who she should be behind. She's constantly like, oh, he's getting his big comeback and all this. It's like, oh my god, shut the fuck up, Alice, and look at Mickey, not Dickie. And then you got the sisters who are god awful, especially that one. Yikes. I'm sorry not to attack someone's appearance, but she didn't get hit by an ugly tree branch. The fucking tree fell on her face. Holy crap, that woman is horrifying. You can make her a horror monster, and she doesn't need the makeup. But this film is frustrating, but it's frustrating because you're watching Mark Wahlberg as Mickey, and he's constantly just being held back by his family. He's a guy, he's incredibly loyal. He puts up with Dickie's crap. He puts up with his family's crap. But because he's loyal, he probably could have been champion way, way sooner in his career. He probably could have been more prosperous in his career. But his family's what held him back, and him trying to dig himself out of the shadow of his brother and the family and all that, with Amy Adams' help, who she's a badass in this film. I love Amy Adams in this film. It's a harrowing film for Mark Wahlberg, which Mark Wahlberg is kind of weird to me because we shit on him a lot, and I like and love him, but also hate him in so many movies. But this is one of those that I really, really enjoyed him in. I think the fights are really well choreographed. Now, they're not like Creed or Rocky level good, but they're still very good. I do think the announcers are a little anti-Mickey to the point where it's kind of over fantastical how they. Now, granted, I never saw the fights live, so I don't know if the announcers actually were shitting on Mickey so hard in that, but it was just like, oh my God, get the fuck off his ass. Like, God, they just hate him.
They even mentioned in the movie that somebody talks about, the HBO and the people in the league is really behind this fighter. They're not going to be on your side. They even mentioned that in the movie.
But yeah, but it's just like, they're so like, no, commentators are supposed to be unbiased and supposed to be balanced, but oh my God, it's like like fair weather, like commentating. It's like, you're on HBO or ESPN, like you need to like calm the F down. Like they're just shitting all over Mickey. But the cast is they all do a fantastic job. David O. Russell, I think does a great job directing. I also really like is it Jack McGee as George Ward.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed his character. I really like this movie, and I think Christian Bale's performance deserved the Oscar. Melissa Leo, I think also she definitely earned the nomination. I don't know. It depends on who she won over that year, but I think she earned the nomination, if not the win. I really enjoyed this one. I know you're not a fan of The Fighter, but what were your thoughts going back and revisiting that?
So, yeah, David O. Russell movies, very hit and miss for me. Mark Wahlberg movies, very hit and miss for me. Christian Bale, same thing. So this is one of those movies that didn't have a lot going for it in my eyes, but I mean, not so much definitely against it. Just kind of I went in with no expectations. I'll start with Mark Wahlberg. He kind of plays the same. I mean, he's fine in this role. He's not anything impressive, but he's not bad. He's just Mark Wahlberg being Mark Wahlberg essentially in this movie. I don't know where to start. Okay, so
I gave you so much to work with here.
This movie reminds me a lot of that. Watching this movie reminded me a lot of Uncut Gems, because it's funny you use the term nails on chalkboard, because listening to people with these nails on chalkboard, horrible accents, yelling at each other for 2 hours straight made me want to fucking kill myself.
It's that girl at the bar.
I hated the accents, and everybody's always yelling. Everybody's yelling over each other, and it's like, oh my God, everyone just please shut up. So there was that had it going for itself. Almost every character in this movie is completely unlikable. I mean, Mickey's okay. I mean, he's fine.
I said Mark Wahlberg's Mickey doesn't do really anything wrong
Yeah, he doesn't do anything. And then Amy Adams' character, although she comes across a little much at times, she's fine. But everyone else in this movie, and I know, and like you with Serious Unfortunate Events, I know you're supposed to not like the rest of these people. You're supposed to be frustrated with them. It's funny because I feel the complete opposite, because I'm watching this.
We've done it in the same week. We were basically saying the same thing, but for the other.
And that's why I was like, oh, when you were talking about Lemmy the Snicket, I'm thinking, man, I'm mad that one went first, because now people are going to think I'm just saying this to get back at him for that. But it's not. These are all what I had. I mean, look at my Letterboxd review, and I said all the same stuff I'm saying now. But I mean, I was so frustrated because every one of these characters, I just wanted them to get hit by a bus and die. I mean, Melissa Leo characters needed to die. All the sisters needed to die. Dickie needed to die. I'm like, all these people, I just could not stand watching them on screen. Which then, of course, brings us to Christian Bale. Christian Bale, I believe, in my opinion, is a hugely overrated actor. He's obviously committed to his roles, physically and everything. He does what he does. But he's never honestly impressed me that much. Any movie he's been in, he's either been like, if you look at like the things like the Dark Knight movies, he's kind of the weakest part of those movies. If you look at the stuff where he's more, he's gotten like more acclaim for it and things like that, I honestly feel like anybody else could have played the role as good, if not better. This movie, honestly, the only thing I thought of from the very first scene to the very last scene is he was playing Jason Mewes, not Jay. He wasn't playing Jay. He was playing Jason Mewes. I mean, if you told me this is a biopic of Jason Mewes, I would totally believe it. From the facial expressions and the way he talks and the way he acts to the problems he's going through with drug addiction, all this kind of thing, and it's just like, oh, I could not get that out of my head. And so the whole time watching this, I'm just thinking he's almost being cartoonish. Again, just super frustrating. You're like, why is this guy, not why does he keep giving him more chances to be in his life? Just kick this guy out of your life. And I get it, he's your brother, but at some point it's like, come on, get on with it. So, but I mean, this isn't a movie I would say I hated. It's just a movie that I've always said before I had to rewatch it here, I never would have rewatched it again. Because I watched it the first time, I'm like, this movie was not for me. People like this kind of thing. This kind of thing is not for me. But
it's not a movie. It's not a movie like a lot of sports arms where you're like, let's watch The Fighter. Like, no, it's not going to be like that. But it's one of those, like, you can go back and, like, at least for me, and appreciate the performances. Now, granted, you hated the performances. I am frustrated with the performances, but because they're based off of a real life.
Well, I know that, and I even know that the performances were probably playing these characters very accurately, but it still doesn't make me want to watch them anymore. And so, which is why I say, again, this is just a movie that I never would have criticized and said, this movie sucks. It's just a movie that I've always said is not for me. So I rewatched it for this. And for most of the movie, I was kind of like, okay, it is what it is. But then, as I mentioned in Letterboxd, it's like when they get to the final fights and the ending, it kind of falls into the typical sports biopic thing where it's like, the underdog who overcomes and wins in the end, spoiler alert and all that kind of thing. So I mean, they created enough artificial excitement in the typical sports movie way that I bumped it up to a 3-star, but just barely for me.
Well, it also does the one thing which I'm starting to see this more and more, especially with King Richard this year, is the thing that Mickey Ward is most known for is not even in the film.
So I haven't even heard of Mickey Ward before. So
he has these 3 fights with Gotti. Who's the guy he fights after he won the title, that are 3 of the best boxing matches. Yes. 3 of the best boxing matches you've ever seen. But the movie stops before that happens. So you take the best thing. It'd be like doing a Michael Jordan film and then stopping right when he gets drafted to the Bulls. Or stopping, when he decides he's going to, like, kind of like in Space Jam, where the movie stops right when he decides to go back to the NBA after baseball. It's like, no, you left out the best part. Like the same thing with King Richard. It's like, spoiler on King Richard, everybody. It stops before Venus and Serena become huge. So it's like, you want to see them as adults dominating the sport. You don't get to see that in King Richard. And same thing with The Fighter. You see him win the belt, but it's all about his journey to get to that belt. It's not about the thing that makes Mickey Ward this well-known, potentially Hall of Fame boxer, which is the 3 fights after the final fight. But it's all about this movie to me is more about Dickie and the performance of Bale than it is Mark Wahlberg. Now, granted, they give Bale supporting actor, but let's put it this way, he's mostly the lead in this film. But yeah, it does do that where it's like, this is could we have gotten more of what happened after this? But it's like, but then it would just be Rocky at that point. Because that's what those fights really like. They felt like real life Rocky. That's what those fights are like. Except both people are Rocky in that film. But yeah, no, I understand. There are a lot of Oscar films that you watch them once, you're like, I have no need to watch this. And like, granted, like The Fighter, I haven't seen it since it came out. But I remember really, really liking it, and it still holds up for me. Now, like I said, do I also think that all the sisters and the mom should be hit by a bus? Yeah. Does Dickie deserve to basically, overdose and die? Now, granted, it would be really, really mean here, but yeah, sure. But that's the story. That's the story we got, and it's based off true story, so it's hard to attack that. Whereas, like with Lemony Snicket, it's a book. You could have changed the book up a little bit to make it make more sense as film, which but no, I see 100% where you're coming at with that. I respect it. I get it. It is if you can't stand those characters, it's a hard watch. Like most like Boston films are, because they're just going real super thick with the accent and all that stuff, and his
It's
sister.
not even just the voices, but the personalities. You're just like,
Oh,
oh my
yeah,
god,
I
I
agree.
hate these people. Get me out of this room.
I agree 100%. But I still think it's probably one of Christian Bale's best performances. I'm kind of like you with Bale, like he's Batman, but I agree. Dark Knight, he's the weakest of everyone in that film. Everyone has a better performance than him in that film. I still think he's phenomenal in American Psycho, though. And Vice, I think everyone around him in Vice is great. But yeah, I usually agree. Bale is a good
He's not
actor.
a bad actor. He just,
No, he's a
I
good
never thought
actor.
he was like, oh my god,
But
Bale.
my favorite performances of his are the ones that people think are the worst, such as like Terminator Salvation and Reign of Fire. And
I
those
love
movies,
Homicide.
I love his performances in those, but his prestigious films are the ones where I'm like, meh. Except for this one. I loved his performance in this. But yeah, The Fighter is on
Hulu and Paramount Plus again.
exactly. So we're now moving on to our feature film. Obviously, I mean, how could we not talk about this film? It was the #1 box office film for how many years?
Well, it came out mid-December, was kept #1 until the first week of April when Lost
No.
Estate.
I'm talking about overall box
Oh,
office.
overall. Oh, yeah. It was, well, it was out unseated by Avatar. So
Yeah, so we're talking about
12 years?
decades, at least
Yeah.
20 years, close to 20 years,
12 years.
12 years, 12 years.
97 to 2009.
Yeah, I forgot how. God damn, it's been so long since Avatar came out. Anyway, guys, we're talking about Titanic. Titanic came out December 19th, 1997, had a budget of $200 million, had a weekend opening of $28.63 million. It was #1 its opening weekend and spent 18. It can go to the strip club weeks at #1. 18-year-old. Come on. Had a finished box office. I think these are our biggest box office on the show. $2.2 billion. $659.36 million domestic and $1.54 billion international. There are movies, and you can agree with this. There are movies that you remember the first time you saw it. You remember the date. You remember who you were with. You remember everything about it. This is one of those movies for me. I remember it. My family, we had this tradition. Sadly, we don't do anymore, and that's a lot of it's because of the way the movie theaters do their screenings now. We would always go to a movie on New Year's Eve, and we would go into the movie, and it'd always be the last showing. So we'd go in one year and come out of the movie in a new year. This is when I saw Titanic for the first time. It was December 31st, 1997. I went with the family. We watched it together, and we came out in 1998.
Good for you, Sean, to come out.
Shut up. Leo did it for me. What can I say? But this is one of those films, and I like as an adult, part of me gets mad at my younger self because of the way everyone makes you feel about a film. And we've had films like this where like I remember being so jaded about this one movie. I'm wondering why I was so jaded about it. This is one of those movies. I remember getting so jaded about this film because the Leo Kate Winslet romance and the Celine Dion song overshadowed the film for me to the point where everyone talked about Titanic. I was like, oh my God, shut the fuck up about Titanic. Kind of like with Leo and Romeo and Juliet. It was just like, oh my God, just stop talking about this. Like, it's not that good. Like, let's calm the F down. And I felt like it really that whole romance overshadowed what was amazing about this film, which was the sinking of the Titanic. That I did not watch this movie for decades. Like I was just like, I don't want to watch Titanic because I didn't want to see the love story. I was like, can I just watch the last hour and a half and skip the first hour and a half? But I've had to watch this movie twice now this year. Once was for trivia, and then the second time this time here. Completely changed. Maybe it's because I'm older now and I'm watching the film as it is and not as a young teenager and stuff like that. But the more and more I watch this, the more I am wowed by how Cameron pulled this off. Just the at the time, $200 million in 1987 is a ridiculous number. I think it was the most expensive film ever made at that time. And of course, look what it made. But this film is amazing. It's an amazing film. I'm gonna let you go now. But yeah, Titanic, Brian.
So yeah, Titanic, like you talked about how you at the time, were made to kind of feel, I don't know, feel ashamed or whatever about how you felt
I'm
about
not
the movie.
ashamed. I'm just so tired of hearing about the
Yeah. So
rules.
with me, I was the biggest defender of this movie because now this movie came out, and again, I went and saw it opening night, and they talk about how much money this movie made, mainly because of like all the young girls that went and saw it, again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
I saw this movie probably at least 6, 7 times in theaters. Now, granted,
I think three.
this is in the prime of my movie going, years. I worked in a movie store. Everyone I knew, we all the movies half the time. Just after every night we'd work, like, hey, let's go see something again tonight. We had friends in the theaters. We didn't always have to pay to go in, things like that. So I saw movies a lot, but I saw this at least 6 or 7 times in the theaters, and that's just the original release. Since it came back out in 3D. I went and saw it again, everything like that. And I love this movie. I think it's technically brilliant. I mean, which is to be expected from James Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's the whole sinking of the Titanic story which is essentially just the backdrop of this movie. But that whole thing is done very well, where you kind of get to understand and experience what they experienced, like the people on the ship while this is happening, instead of just being like, hey, the Titanic sank, the story you've heard, for your whole life. You can this is kind of what it felt like. It's the same way I felt the first time I saw Saving Private Ryan. I mean, like, you've heard war stories, things like that, but that opening scene on Omaha Beach, you're like, holy shit, this is what it was like for these people that they had to, trying to make it onto this beach. And this, I mean, obviously is a different situation, there's a different kind of story, but the same thing as far as it kind of puts you on that boat and kind of what it felt like. But then you have the whole romance story that the story is about, that's set against the backdrop of the Titanic. And I love the love story. And I mean, are there some cheesy lines of dialogue here and there? Yeah, there are. I mean, it's James Cameron. There's going to be. But I believe this love story. I really enjoy it. I think the performances are great. It's probably not the first place I saw Kate Winslet, but it's the first time I took notice of her.
It was the first time I saw Kate Winslet.
And ever since then, I've really liked her. Even if not all of her movies are the kind of things that I enjoy, she's one of those actresses who, even if you don't like the movie, she's going to be excellent in it.
Mm.
So I really, I really liked her in this. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio, who he's the main reason this movie gets the hate it gets. The thing about this movie is, and
it's not his fault. It's the girls that.
Well, that's just it. This movie at the time, the reason it got this huge backlash. Because it was so big. Anytime anything gets this big, people are going to be like, oh, I'm sick of hearing about this. I don't want to hear about this. It's not as good as you think. Stop talking about it. B, you got the fact that, like you said, it was everywhere with the Celine Dion soundtrack and everything else. It was everywhere. And then all the Oscar wins, things like that. But the main thing was Leonardo DiCaprio. Is like the girls were like insane about Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, this is almost like nothing you've seen since, I don't know, the Beatles or some shit like that. So yes, we were sick of hearing about Leonardo DiCaprio and sick of hearing, teenage girls talking about this movie in general.
We had just gotten past Romeo and Juliet.
But you really have again. But it's the kind of thing, and I've been saying this since 1997. I'm like, you need to separate your feelings about the movie from your feelings about the hype surrounding the movie. You cannot hate the movie because of the hype around it. Look at the movie as its own thing, and it is just excellently made. And I'm not going to say flawless, but it's a great movie. There's a lot of movies that are 3 hours plus are not going to hold my interest. This one holds my interest from beginning to end. Everything about it, from the score to the cinematography to the acting, to everything about it, I think is just excellent.
Yeah, I watched this earlier this year for trivia purposes, so I had to kind of like study it like a fine-tooth comb. And I remember like coming up on this week, I was like, I'm probably not going to rewatch it. I was like, I just watched it. I'm probably not going to rewatch it. And I was like, well, you know what? Let's at least watch some of it. And yeah, as soon as I was back in the world of Titanic, I had to finish it. It's like, well, I'm in this now. I got to finish this because the story just grabs you. And yeah, like you said, it had been long enough of a time that I could take the story around the film out of it and just watch the movie for it. Wasn't granted, we love Leo now. I mean, it only took a couple more years after this to finally like Leo for Leo. But yeah, you watch this. Kate Winslet is fucking amazing. in this film. She's great. And I agree. I love Kate Winslet. I love watching her in anything she's in. And this is my introduction to her. Leo does a great job in this film. The cast around, this is a phenomenal cast.
Really
I mean, the cast, I could start naming names, but it's like 50 people. There's so many great, like little character moments. But I mean, I love everything. Billy Zane is
such a mustache twirling villain in this. You'd think that it wouldn't work.
He's one of the best villains.
Yeah.
Without being like a murderous guy. Granted, he does start shooting at him at one point, but he is one of the best cinematic villains ever. Her mom, you just want to slap, and you hope that oh god, what's her name?
Kathy Bates. Brown. Yeah.
Yes, you hoped at one point she was gonna slap the shit out of him, and she didn't. And you're like, damn it! But like that's the great thing about the final act. Now, granted, like it can get a little over fantastical, a little over sold on things where the frustration and the stupidity of the people on board when everything's going on with the first class be like, oh, I hope they don't put the third class people on our boat.
But in this case,
but that's what it was like. That's what it was like. Yeah, and then just watching like them not putting only putting 12 people on a boat instead of when it could fit like 80 or whatever, and like how many more lives it could save, and how only one boat, Mr. Fantastic, coming back to save basically 6 people. Just it makes you angry, but it's like I said, good frustration compared to bad frustration in a movie. This is one of those where it's just like, why are you all so stupid? But it's like, because I mean, in any situation, who knows? Like, even by today's standards, I could have been the same boat, but it's done so beautifully. It's so beautifully crafted, and as soon as that boat starts to do this, you are just.
Well, one of the things I think was one of the smartest things that James Cameron did was, as much as it kind of feels like the modern day, the Bill Paxton part of the story feels almost unnecessary to it when you at first glance, other than wanting to have her be a narrator. It actually is super smart because they can do things like when they're explaining to her, when they're showing the computer simulation of this is what Titanic happened, this filled up with water, this part broke off, this sank over these bulkheads. They explain all that to you in this computer model so that when it happens, you know what's happening. You understand what's going on, and you know what's going to happen, and so you can follow along and focus on the story. Yeah. And I thought that was just a brilliant tool that he used as a way to do that.
With a guy trying to do his best, Philip Seymour Hoffman from Twister. but yeah, also
the extreme.
Yes, there was one guy, one performance I think really should have gotten award recognition as a supporting actor, and that was Victor Garber.
Yeah,
I thought Victor Garber. That's the best I've ever seen Victor Garber. I think his performance in that film, it's small, but that's what a supporting actor role is supposed to be. It's a small role. It doesn't overtake the film. His performance in that film, same thing with Billy Zane. Billy Zane wouldn't have gotten an Oscar now. He's, like I said, mustache twirler, but he's perfect for the role. But Victor Garber's performance as Mr. Andrews is perfect. I
would also give some props to Bernard Hill, who played the
I was supposed to say Bernard Hill as was Captain Smith, yeah. Like I said, the list goes on and on. How amazing the performances are for this film, and how visually everything looks. Titanic feels like it's a real ship. Which granted they built almost pretty much a whole friggin' to shoot this film.
Yeah.
I mean, even the real story, like not the real story, but the present day story with Bill Paxton and all them, it doesn't overshadow. Like when they are saying, "Hey, we're telling you the story of Titanic," they don't say like, "Let's go back and check out what's going on with them." No. But they do give us a breather to go back to them for like a minute or two, just to kind of settle things in, and then they take you right back to Titanic. I love that they didn't try to
how they're going from these treasure hunting people. You see how the story's affecting them,
Exactly, and I love that they weren't just like, all right, lady, come on, let's move on with the story. Let's go. Like, no, they are fixed on this to the point where it's like when they're recording, it's like someone's gonna go, we can make a movie out of this, and then boom, we had Titanic the movie. Maybe that's how the movie got made. But I still think. And I know a lot of people are going to argue with me on this. I still think Old Rose should not have dropped the fucking heart of the ocean back in the sea. It's like, come on, lady. Like, why? You had no reason to do that. Yeah. It didn't have any personal connection to you and all this. Like, you just give it to them. They brought you on. They basically brought you back to Jack.
Well, here's my thing is they talk about how she like basically used her life to work, and she like worked for charities, things like that. You know how much money that could have helped charities with?
Exactly. Like, you could have sold that, and then at the very end, like, they brought you back to your one true love. Give him the freaking necklace.
Say for her husband, she apparently married after him.
There's a dilemma that I've got with that. There's like, so, and I don't want to make this a whole religious thing because that's not. But it's like, okay, she goes to heaven and at the end, but she goes to Jack. What about her husband? It's like there's a whole. I'm not going to go down that road, but I love the ending. I love that ending where Jack is waiting for her at the staircase.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better if they had Jack waiting for her at the top of the ship, because that's where they first met, instead of at the staircase, with everyone kind of like maybe basically being on the edge outside as she walked the stern, like, and Jack's waiting at the point where they first met and they had their moment. I think that would have been probably better than the staircase, but still, it's a beautiful scene. And like I said, everything about the ship going down is done so beautifully and so well. And I'm going to argue, and you may already disagree, Jack could have survived. He could have gotten on the freaking wood. They could have taken turns. All that stuff. Jack should have survived. I still, to this day, when she goes, "I'll never let go," as she's letting go.
That was ironic. She said, "I'll never let go, Jack. Bye." And I still say go with the Key and Peele version, where they should have just tied a bunch of dead white people together and made a raft.
Or he could have swam to some of the dead
people that died, whatever they were floating on. Grab that.
That's what I'm saying. He could have went and grabbed.
You probably can't swim at that point, but
but still, I think Jack
we're not getting into
that. But anyway, Titanic is one of those films that now I appreciate for what it really was, which is a masterclass in directing. It's a masterclass of everything working beautifully. Yes, there's some over the top moments, and there's some acting things a little here. There's some lines of dialogue that are a little hokey, but you need that in this film. And I think Titanic is one of those films that I'm mad at myself that I let that jadedness get involved in my head for those.
I like Bill Paxton. I never let it get inside me.
Yeah. I'm mad that it took me so long to go back and revisit it. I watched it twice this year, and both times I'm like, damn it, why haven't I watched this more? It's because I keep thinking back to the jadedness of it back in 97. I'm mad at myself for letting that overtake me. But Titanic is a phenomenal film that I think gets shit on because of, like you said, the aura of it, and not people who are just watch the damn movie.
And the saddest thing about this movie is it's 24 years old at this point.
Yeah.
It is the last non-Avatar film that James Cameron made, and he's not making any more non-Avatar movies for several more years. So it's like
I'm not one of the people that hate Avatar. I don't
hate Avatar, but I'm like, you've wasted the career of one of the guys. He's made some of the greatest films of all time, and he's wasted the last 24 years and counting on nothing but Avatar, which is like, come on.
You could have been doing. You could get Avatar's good. It's not. I need to do my.
No one asked for sequels. You could have made 7 other movies by now,
and could have been Titanic-esque levels, and you're basically making Avatar 2, 3, 4, blah blah blah, whatever. Except for when he decides I want to do a documentary. Yeah. But anyway, guys, it's on it's on Netflix, but
it's on Netflix, Paramount Plus, and you can watch it with ads on Pluto TV.
But it is leaving Netflix at the end of the year, because it literally, as the movie ends, it goes. Watch it while you can.
So when you watch this, you got like a week left or something.
Yeah, exactly. It leaves Netflix September 31st. But that's our show, guys. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode of The Weekend Crusaders. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel in case you I totally lost my train of thought through my whole pitch. But anyway, it's fine. But yeah, follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, Spider-Man No Way Home. It's coming out finally. It's actually out right now. Let's put it this way. By the time we drop this, it is out. Brian and I will both have already seen it. We're going to have a non-spoiler review. We will probably have a spoiler review as well, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about with Brian and I. So look out for both of those reviews. Also, Nightmare Alley comes out. I don't think I may or may not get to watch that this week. It kind of just depends on my schedule. I don't know if you're checking it out this week.
Maybe.
But
like if I have some free time, I might, but I'm not in a rush.
Next week, obviously, is Christmas. There's a ton of movies. Matrix Resurrections, which I'll watch on HBO Max. Brian, you'll probably go see it in the theaters. The Kingsman, which I think was supposed to come out like 2-3 years ago, is finally coming out. Sing 2 is coming out as well. I actually like the first one, so I'm actually excited to see the second one. Speaking of Paul Thomas Anderson, Licorice Pizza is finally going wide release. Neither one of us really have any desire to see it, but I guess we'll check it out at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
Don't Look Up, I said came out last week, which it did in select theaters. It's finally getting released on Netflix coming up next week, so we'll finally have a review for that. American Underdog, which is actually one of the movies that I'm actually really excited to see because I really want to see Zachary Levi as Kurt Warner. That comes out. The Tragedy of Macbeth. I don't know if that's select theaters or if that's wide release, but I think that also comes out next week. And then A Journal for Jordan also comes out. So there's a lot of movies. I will try to watch what I can and what I can review. What we might end up having to do is I'm just have to watch all these, and then I might just be doing a massive review episode.
One other one I will mention, Being There Cardos, which is limited theatrical, is coming to Amazon this weekend.
Yeah, so there's that as well. So yeah, I might just end up having to do like one big review episode where I'm just going to like do 10 reviews all in one episode because it just takes way too long just doing 10 individual videos, editing and putting them all online. So we got those. But we will be back next week for another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. It's our final Weekend at Crusaders episode of the year because we're not going to do New Year's Eve because no movies really came out New Year's Eve. So this is going to be our final episode of the year for the Weekend Crusaders. We've got a very over-the-top sports film that I unabashedly love. There's an Oscar classic that I had never seen, so this will be a first-time watch for me. We've got a amazing sci-fi cult classic that now is becoming even more and more beloved as the days go on. We've got a criminally underrated high school horror or like sci-fi film, horror film. I wouldn't say a horror film. It's more a sci-fi film. And then we've got a stinker that basically I should enjoy, but I heard it was atrocious, so I never saw it. But based off the people in it and directors and stuff like that and what I love, this movie's right up my alley that I should love this movie. So we'll see if I'm going to try to defend this.
I get to watch Sean's heartbreak in real time.
Yeah, it's got, like Brian said last week, his favorite version of Sean is anguish, or is it anguish, Sean?
I forgot the word. Frustrated? No, I don't
frustrated,
remember
but I'm like, ah! Maybe that's what we're going to see in this. Who knows? But that's our show for next week. Figure out what movies we're talking about. And until next time, we are the Weekend Crusaders. My name is Sean Wasserkrug. That is Brian Michaels. In case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.